Hello there. Welcome to Blitz Transmissions. This is the Blitzcast number 41. I'm Tommy. And before we get into the content of this episode, as always, make sure to check out the laundry list of links that can be found in the description below. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe if you're not yet subscribed, because guess what? I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. In addition to that, if you are an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this podcast episode early. If you'd like access to early content, monthly giveaways, and other awesome benefits, you could check out the link to my Patreon in the description below. Become an ARC Trooper for just $4.99 a month. If you would like access to reviews early, you're a big fan of just the YouTube side of things, you can check out my YouTube channel membership, Rancor Battalion, for just 99 cents a month. Gives you access to exclusive badges, priority replies to my comment section, just the reviews early as opposed to all the content, and you also get to vote on what I review next for the channel. If you'd like some Blitz Transmission swag, like the hat that I have off to the left here, you could check out the Blitz Transmissions Armory over on Printify. Link to that is in the description below. You can check out my Discord, Instagram, Blitz Bounties Instagram, X, TikTok. I think that's everything. Backed by popular demand, we have the one, the only. Commander Snud has joined us once again, making his third appearance on the Blitzcast. Commander Bly.
That's right. Those of you who are on the Shadow Patreon Council, you know who you are. So some of you may not know that this exists. There is a secret Patreon called a Shadow Patreon. And these folks have just been pouring in by the millions of dollars, really.
Yeah.
Requesting, demanding, in fact, my return.
Cash donations.
That's right. Yeah. And, we make sure 1099s are filled out for all of these cash donations.
Yeah.
Of course, we're staying on the up and up.
Yeah.
But yeah, the demand was just so powerful that I had to be taken out of the hot jungles of Felucia and brought to the Blitz Transmissions
barracks.
That's right.
We're in the barracks right now.
Yes, we are.
I usually don't bend to the will of lobbyists. However, when it comes to something like a humanitarian issue, like bringing Bly over here to talk Star Wars with us again, sometimes exceptions have to be made. So just know I don't do corruption unless it really benefits me.
Right. I like to believe it's for the people.
Right, yeah.
The paying people.
I love democracy. I love the Republic. So what's new? Since the last time we saw you, it's been several episodes now since we've seen you on the Blitzcast. What's going on in the world of Bly? Well,
for me, I'm excited about stuff that a lot of people that might be watching won't be excited about, but that's okay. I've been making clone props for clone troopers in the 501st Legion for 20 years and almost 20 years. And I'm excited I'm always working on improving the things that I make. So I've been experimenting with some different materials. I've been building some new projects that I've never done before, having fun doing that. Working on a secret project for the Blitz Transmissions podcast.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's taken some more time than I expected, but as I create, I edit and try to make the first version close to the best version.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on with me in the world of Star Wars.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
As far as I am concerned,
nobody cares.
Any askers?
Who's doing that?
This episode, you probably would have noticed, came out a couple days later than usual. Usually I try to release these on Saturdays. This is going to be Monday when this comes out. Mainly because I've just been working a lot of overtime recently. It's the summertime, and if you know what I do for a living, then you'll know that there's a lot more mud that needs rolled in the summertime than in the wintertime. So that's what I've been up to. Because of that, just didn't have the time, wasn't in the cards the last few days to record a Blitzcast episode. So here we are today, putting it out a couple days late, but we're hoping we're going to bring you a good episode. Still pretty dry on Star Wars news. I can't really think of anything in the last week that's happened that's notable.
No, I mean, the only thing I could think of is recently Daisy Ridley says that she's read the screenplay for her new movie and she's really excited.
Yeah.
So she's probably the only one. But anyway.
That's crazy. But it's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know it's crazy, but it's true. Anyway.
But, yeah, I can't really think of much else on that front. So we have a topic for you all.
Yeah. So, what are the barriers preventing the return of the Grimace Shake? We need to understand.
Yeah.
We need to analyze. Mm-hmm. We need to find out what is really going on. Why are we being denied the Grimace Shake?
Is it Big Pharma? Is it Big Corpo? Is it a mix of Big Pharma and Big Corpo?
Apparently, I hear that Fauci had stock in the Grimace Shake.
I hear he had stock.
Things are all tied up in this, and it's something to do with Epstein.
I was about to say, I think I heard Grimace was on the Epstein files, and that's why all the other current events are happening.
Are we allowed to talk about that? I mean, you have exclusive access to this information. Is this allowed to be public?
I mean, I don't have a problem being the whistleblower, you know.
Okay.
Just airing it out right now, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes right now. Grimace is under siege with civil suits, and
it's a shame.
You know,
it really is. And I don't even know why this should be relevant, but apparently he was caught with a van load of baby oil outside of P. Diddy's house.
Yeah.
I mean, Grimace, what's going on, brother? You know?
I don't know. I can't really explain it to you. If you have questions, I will direct you to the Zoo Boy from Monday Night Figure Ball, and he'll have all the answers for you.
Right. And Grimace's PR manager, Commander Cook.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Left no comment.
Yeah,
on
he's not responding.
Yeah.
We've been trying to reach him. We've sent emails. We've actually flown to his house, knocked on the door.
Yeah.
This man is not having it. He is not communicating with us. If you see Commander Cook in the wild, if you know where he is, please try to get him to give us some answers. We're worried about Grimace.
We are.
We're worried about him.
So, in light of all of that, it's I'm going to be keeping an eye over my shoulder as I'm out in public now due to being the whistleblower on this information. If I stop posting, you guys know why. Okay.
He did not commit suicide.
No,
he did not commit suicide.
So I feel like with all of that, we're going to have to bury that conversation in a more relevant topic to the Blitzcast.
Yeah.
Because if I title this video with the whistleblowing information, you got that'll just air me out more than is necessary. So to prevent further eyes on us, I'm gonna need everybody to get your mom's credit card out of the purse in the closet, and you're gonna need to give me the numbers on the front of the card, the expiration, and the magic 3 numbers on the back of the card.
That's right.
Okay, that's how we're gonna keep Grimace safe, and that's how we get Grimace off the Epstein files.
That's right.
On that note, let's get into the topic of this podcast episode. So, Mr. Bly, you've got some more skin in the game than myself and many of my cohorts.
I mean, some would say that I am an actual real Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And the rest of you are grifters.
That's true.
Basically, from Generation X on, are all grifters.
I would say that would be based.
Yeah.
And
that's okay.
You are in cahoots with the Grand Unk Council as well.
That's right.
Shout out to Sarlacc Digest and Shadow Nose Network for that.
That's right.
Here's where we're at. So I think we need to school some people on what is slop and what is not. So I think let's take a jump back in time here. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what brought you here today with collecting and costuming and things of that nature when it comes to this franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
in your adult life, because we all know the age-old tale. oh, I played with Star Wars toys as a kid, and
Star Wars has been part of my life since I was born.
I have been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was, as some may know, and if you don't know, now you know, I'm a recovering collector. Every day is a struggle. Yep. Sometimes some plugs will show up at my door,
watch
trying to get me back into the game. Yep. And
it's a explosive device attached to this cord here.
Does this have something to do with Grimace?
No comment. I can't.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we'll talk about it later.
May or may not be wiretapped.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Watch the cord.
They got us again. Yeah. Anyway, So I was a heavy collector.
Yeah.
Avid collector. And then there came a time where I no longer had. A display room.
Yeah.
to put all my treasures out for me to visually consume.
Right.
Because we kept having children.
Spawn.
That's right. We kept spawning. Actually, the Kaminoans were very busy.
Yeah.
In my house.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there came a time where I was continuing to collect.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have anywhere to put it out. Things ended up in bins in my attic. And, I could go all the way back to 1999. Some of you weren't born yet. But this was a time when Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, came out. Well, right before it came out, this is back when I did have... my collection. I had a collection room. I actually had in our local historical museum. They asked me if they gave me a room and said, "Would you display your Star Wars collection in our museum?" This was Christmas time of '99, and I said yes, I would be glad to. And I didn't have my original Star Wars toys when I was a kid, because my mom had unceremoniously sold them all in yard sales and kept the money. Diabolical, I know. But so I contacted...
Probably sold them for like a nickel a figure.
Who knows?
Yeah. She doesn't even remember.
Pack Smokes?
No.
I don't know. Anyway, so my friend Gene, shout out Gene, he did have all of his childhood toys, and he lent me his toys to put on display. So in this big room in this museum, I had my display out. Well, during that time, this was before, social media and even cell phones were still in their infancy.
Yeah.
We were just writing on stone tablets and communicating with birds.
With clicking and...
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So,
echolocation.
Morse code.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Morse code.
Yeah, something.
So, but I had been doing research. I really loved the visuals and a lot of the, how do you say, the publication, the hype for The Phantom Menace. Like, wow, the Jedi looks so cool. So I started building, that was when I started building my first Jedi costume. Mm-hmm. Now, even though my mother is a toy thief, she also happens to be like a master seamstress.
Yes, This is true. I can attest.
So she eventually got to the point to where she had her own business out of her house. But so I would work with gathering reference materials and reading everything that I could. There were these paper things, they're called books, and they had pictures in them. Mm-hmm. You couldn't just Google it.
Right.
So I would get magazines, books, visual dictionary, all that stuff that came out before even The Phantom Menace came out. Started working on my first Jedi costume. So that was the first step in my transition from action figure collecting to wanting to actually be an action figure. Mm-hmm. So I went through several iterations of Jedi costumes. I think we did alterations, we did adjustments, we did remakes, and I think I went through about eight revisions of my Jedi costume. And I ended up with making a version of my favorite Jedi, Mace Windu, my favorite Star Wars character, actually. Mm-hmm. the same shape, some of the same types of materials, but like a chocolate brown tunic instead of the gray, well, gray and the Phantom Menace.
Right.
It was like a
it
light
changed.
gray.
Yeah.
So anyway, then I got to the point where clone troopers were introduced into Star Wars.
Clones? I'm out. See you later.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye. Yeah, nobody cares about clone troopers.
I just figured since you've
Yeah.
given it to me, here's the custom action figure of
That's my first revision. This is my
Croth.
first revision. I changed my Jedi name to Croth Fidelis.
Croth Fidelis.
Okay, which then became General Fidelis. So anyway, clone troopers were introduced, and man, as a kid, I loved the stormtroopers. I would lay in my bed thinking how cool those armor costumes were, and how just imagining, not even like that it could be a reality that one day I could own an armor costume like that. But when the clones, so really it was clone trooper introduction, but my first transition from Jedi costuming to armor costuming, I wanted to make a Clone Wars general Jedi costume.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So I took one of I think it was probably like revision 6. I had a Jedi costume.
Yeah.
And I got onto clonetroopers.net back then, was the 501st detachment for clone troopers. So the 501st Legion is a global organization, and it's broken up into costume-specific costumes, groupings, if you will. So clonetroopers.net, which is now clonetroopers.com, clonetroopers.net was in the early 2000s. I started researching, well, how can I get or how can I make some armor pieces? I wanted some clone gauntlets. I wanted maybe some clone shins and shoes.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to do was gauntlets and a tattered robe.
Yeah.
Not tunic, but the robe.
Yeah.
I actually did do that. I actually did complete that costume.
That's crazy.
But I didn't, I think I wore it once. I just wasn't really happy with it.
Yeah.
But starting to get into how to acquire these materials or these pieces, that got me into, well, I just want to make a whole damn clone trooper costume.
Might as well at that point.
Yeah. So so a lot of research. Back then, back in the olden times.
Back in the Disney.
That's right. Message boards for this type of thing were the place to go.
So for people who maybe don't know what a message board is, that's essentially what Discord is now. Discord is like a much more modern form of message board.
Yeah, Discord is, it's actually, I find it more effective for instant communications. Okay?
Yes.
The 501st still uses message boards, but it's...
The Clone Trooper detachment does use Discord, though.
Yes. Most of the detachments do.
Yeah.
So, but in addition, the message board is still used as an archive.
Okay.
Because it's harder with a Discord to find information that maybe was posted a couple years ago. You're just not not going to find that.
Yeah.
Okay, the message boards still keep that stuff organized, and you still have a better chance to find out maybe the costume that you want to build the last maybe the costume you want to build the last time someone has built that costume and recorded their progress, which not everyone does. Not everybody wants to do that. Maybe it's been a few years, and so with the message boards, you're able to go back in time, and maybe that member is still active even on the message boards. You can contact them, but you can see what people have went through to help you along the way. So my first clone trooper build, I started it in late 2005, I started my research. The research part is a phase that a lot of people, especially now, with all the TikTok brain morons, everybody wants instant answers. There's so many. Well, back then there were people that would get on and say, I just want to buy a costume.
Yeah.
Like a completely assembled costume. It just doesn't work that way.
No, it's not a thing.
Every single armor costume, and even soft goods fabric costumes, have to be fitted to the individual. There is no off-the-shelf Walmart style.
Buy it and you wear it.
Exactly. Lost my train of thought there.
You were talking about people would just come in and be like, I just want to buy a costume.
Yeah, people want instant answers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because that's just not, it's not as people tend to say, this thing is not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yes, it is.
So the research stage.
And I can definitely attest to.
Oh yeah.
It's a marathon. It took years to complete my costume.
We talked about it.
Started it, stopped. Mm-hmm. Started it, stopped.
Real life gets in the way of Star Wars life.
I was living on campus at school at the time. I was working 2 jobs. A lot of the situations were not conducive to that. But.
Yeah, so it's something that you do because you really want to. And so my first, even though I started research and I started getting answers, building relationships, I was building my costume alongside 2 other guys. They got their costumes done and approved before I did, because my thing was, it took over a year for me to build my first Clone Trooper costume. I didn't get approved by the 501st until 2007. And the reason was, at that time, the Clone Trooper costuming community of the 501st was just on fire with people coming up with new ways to make more accurate Clone Trooper parts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a friend, Frank. He and I had teamed up on building different props, but he was investigating different ways to make resin, different ways to make resin castings, different materials to use. I need a drink of water.
Yeah.
Jump in.
Just taking that aspect of it. That's something that I've even considered, when I was in college and I had time, was looking into finding a way to make armor where I could sit in the Clone Trooper armor. That was my biggest thing. Because that, I will say, trooping as a Clone Trooper, 9 times out of 10, you can't sit in your suit, especially if you're like me and you have an ARC Trooper costume with all the extra bits everywhere. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, it depends on the costume that you choose and how accurate do you want it to look.
Right.
You can make it a little less accurate and have a little more mobility, maybe.
Yes, you can.
But it depends on the character. It depends on the type of armor. So the community was abuzz with constantly new, more accurate parts or better materials were used. So I was chasing that the whole time. I would get parts. I would start building those parts or assembling them, prepping them for my costume, and then some better version of that same piece would come out, and then I would go after that one. Yeah. And even it's much less today, but even now, people are still. Now the big thing is 3D printing. A lot of people want to 3D print their armor costume because it's cheap.
Let me just say, on that note, again, respect if that's the route you take, but I think that 3D printing is vastly inferior to the vacuform armor. Having handled both, having seen the process that it takes to create the 3D printed version, in my opinion, it's just not worth it. You should bite the bullet and go with the vacuform. And the other part about 3D print, if you drop anything, it's like a million times more likely to just shatter into pieces. I've seen it happen time and time again with people.
Yeah. Being an armor unk, I would recommend resin cast parts and vacuum formed body armor pieces. 3D printing to me can work well with pieces of your costume that are not going to get torqued. Yeah. So like maybe a helmet or blasters or a backpack or something like that. But the actual armor that you wear needs to be able to flex without breaking. And unfortunately, not only is 3D printed armor more fragile, but it's also thicker. It's also heavier. It's also much, much more difficult to change the size of that armor.
Right.
Whether when you print it, if it's just a little too small or if it's just a little too big, you can almost forget about resizing it. Yeah. You need to resize your file and then reprint that whole piece. Anyway, so there continue to be innovations in armor costumes within the 501st, which is one of my favorite parts. I do have some of a manufacturing background. I really enjoy I'm currently right now experimenting with some different materials for the parts that I make, and it's talking shop completely. I understand that it's way in the weeds, but to me it's exciting. I like to try out new things and see how they work. I like to have an idea in my mind and then bring it into reality with my hands and tools and materials.
Yeah, no problem. He's dying over here. He's yapping.
I think Grimace's agents put something in my water.
The Pinkertons snuck something in the water.
So my first costume was a 327 Star Corps Grunt. I wanted to be a Grunt because everybody wants to be a commander.
Yes.
I didn't. Okay. I am a Marine Corps veteran. I have decided in my weird Star Wars mind that that the 327th Star Corps is kind of like the Marines. Okay.
Yeah.
I do have the experience of practically melting in tropical jungles, doing training and things like that, and I just look at Felucia and I can feel and smell what Felucia probably was like. So I wanted to do just a grunt, okay? I wanted to do it well. I love all the extra accoutrement that the 327th wear, the pauldrons, the commas, the double pistols, even the regular ground pounders have all of that
all
stuff.
The extras.
So then the Clone Wars was coming out. And
I'm sorry. You mean the Slop Wars?
Well, yes, the Slop Wars,
the show that Dave Filoni ruined Star Wars with because Dave Filoni single-handedly.
I spit on Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni single-handedly gave all the Glup Shido Jedi backstories, or I'm sorry, more character,
right? And
gave clone troopers more character. Only Dave Filoni did it.
Right.
And I hate Dave Filoni for that.
Yeah, really. I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah, so
anyway,
the Clone Wars was coming out, and Lucasfilm wanted... I mentioned this before.
I think I mentioned this last week on the podcast,
okay,
actually.
Yeah, and you're going to hear it again.
The Philadelphia King of Prussia Mall.
That's right, whether you like it or not. So anyway... there was a need for Captain Rex costumes to help promote the Clone Wars.
Yes.
So I switched my costume over to Captain Rex, and at this time, currently there are realistic style armor costumes pieces, kits. There are kits. There are 3D print files that you can get. That are animated, Clone Wars animated style. At this time, when Clone Wars was coming out, those didn't exist.
Right.
They weren't a thing. So what we were doing in the Clone Trooper community was taking a bit of creative license and saying and using Sideshow helped.
They did.
Just a little bit later after this, after
Yeah.
the very beginning, Sideshow helped with what a realistic version, because it's officially licensed products.
Yeah.
So they helped us with references. What would an animated clone look like in real life, in movie style? And you may think, oh, well, it's just paint patterns. Well, it's not paint patterns only, because there are many accessories that the clone troopers are seen with in the Clone Wars that don't have a direct, realistic translation.
Yes.
So, for example, like Captain Rex's animated pauldron, there was a lot of debate in the community. What does that look like? Is that an episode 3 pauldron? Is that a version of it? Is it its own thing? Do you take a direct translation of the animated pauldron and just slap that on a realistic armor?
Yeah.
Does that work? So looked like you were gonna.
It's funny you bring that up. If you want to finish your thought, go ahead, because that's like a side tangent. I was.
So is the side tangent about self-proclaimed experts?
Yes, it is.
I love it.
It is.
I love it. I love when people they declare themselves expert.
Having had this much zero, a big fat goose egg of experience in designing costumes, building costumes, having had any conversation with another human being about how this process works, just waking up one day and deciding I'm going to post on social media that this is definitively how this thing would look if it was in live action.
Yes.
And if you disagree, F you and you're an asshole.
Yes.
That's exactly. And I will say, I see it in... It's only the clone troopers. I really don't... Sometimes I see it with other characters, like translating animation to live action. But what kills me right now is there's a particular page on Instagram called Trooper Addy, ATTI, and he is one of those just highbrow, like self-proclaimed, like expert on clone troopers. He does some cool stuff, like trying to design, like, hey, how would this character... He'll draw it himself. Like, how would this character look if it was in the 2003 Clone Wars animated style? And I think he does a really good job with that. And he'll also do, like, renders of, like, this 2003 animated clone. How would they look in Revenge of the Sith, armor? I will get, I'm not trying to just bash on the dude. But he is extremely rude to people in his comment sections. There was a post in particular where I was just... I usually just don't reply. I see his posts. I'm like, whatever. I go about my day. But there's one where I was so compelled to comment. Because he made this whole post like about the history of the clone trooper pauldron. And it's literally like, you are one of the lead people in the costuming community for like over a decade, probably like 2 decades now almost, that's been making
specifically
accurate pauldrons. Yeah. And so I obviously have a lot of knowledge, way more than most, about pauldrons because of this. And he did this whole thing where a lot of people do this. They cling to this one offhand comment that was made in the behind the scenes of the Clone Wars Season 1, I want to say, where they said that a lot of the clone commanders are just Phase 1 clones with Revenge of the Sith clone accessories, like pauldrons and commas, etc. Think Rex, think Bly, think Gree, think Pons, those types of commanders. He uses that as the one piece of evidence to say that the only style of pauldron that is allowed to exist in live action is the Revenge of the Sith pauldron. That is the only one. Yeah. And there was even... so at the end of it, he was talking about the ARC Trooper pauldrons from the 2008 Clone Wars. And he was saying that the only accurate way that would look in live action would be a double Revenge of the Sith pauldron. So the larger side of the Revenge of the Sith pauldron.
I've actually made a couple customs like that for people.
On both sides.
Yeah.
I hate the way that looks. Yeah. It's just my personal preference. Yeah. I don't like it at all. But I commented and I was like, hey, this is coming from a guy, like I do an animated Blitz costume. My father works, we're both 501st members, blah, blah, blah. I was like, the ARC Trooper pauldron in the Clone Wars is both a different shape and size than any other pauldron in any other media.
It's unique to the Clone Wars.
And even Star Wars Battlefront 2, 2017, the EA version, uses a different shape and size for that pauldron.
Yes, it does.
Even the Hot Toy, I have Jesse back here on the shelf, and the incoming Fives and Echo have a unique style. And he basically replied to me and said, oh, cool, man. You're wrong, though, but cool. And I was just like, I just didn't even reply back. I was like, this just isn't even... It's like talking to a brick wall. Like, there's people out there in the clone trooper community, I'll call it. Like, when people say cloner brain rot, that is actual cloner brain rot. Like, where you're just talking to somebody that's so... Their head is so far up their ass that they just refuse to... accept the fact that they could be incorrect about a detail.
These are things to talk about with an open mind. These are things to discuss. Yes. These are not things to proclaim. And actually, as much as I don't even like it, but the Ahsoka live-action Rex Phase 1 has a Clone Wars style pauldron-ish, and that is on live-action armor. So whether he may like it or not, that is, in fact...
the canon look.
That is canon.
Currently.
That's currently how it is.
Yeah, until they change it again, which they'll probably do because they can't seem to stick with one uniform design for the 17 million Disney Plus shows that the Clone Troopers keep showing up in. We, for some reason, keep completely rehauling the entire look of the costume.
Yeah, I don't... I am on record officially as... not being a fan of any. I like some more than others, but I'm not a fan of the design for any of the live-action Clone Troopers that we've seen.
The best one, in my opinion, I have a couple you'll see on the card backs here. I like the Obi-Wan Kenobi helmet on the Andor body, which you can see on that card up there. Yeah. That's, I think, would be my closest you could get, would be... the body. I don't like the helmets of the Andor ones.
Yeah, me either.
But I think the helmets from Obi-Wan Kenobi are the closest they've made so far. There's the 501st right there. The closest they've made so far to a Revenge of the Sith helmet. So, that helmet with the Andor body, that's what I think looks most like the prequel trilogy.
I think the 501st Black Series helmet is the most accurate.
Said no one.
I was just trashing on that when I came in.
Right Tommy's before we started.
Collection room. He's got that helmet up on the shelf, and and for the normies, it's fine.
It's fine.
I get it. But as far as like the live action armor, like there were decisions made that don't even make sense. Like
the slap wristband gauntlets.
Yeah. Okay. There's no reason
to change that.
In the early days, there was a lot of... there were people who had built Stormtrooper costumes before the Clone Troopers existed.
Right,
okay?
Right.
So they were mumbling and grumbling and groaning and gnashing of teeth because on the Clone Trooper armor there are no seams, and they had to fill the seams, and the seams! So for whomever it is, I know they used a couple different people and actually it's funny because I know that one of the people that Lucasfilm used to help design the live action Clone Trooper costumes for, let's see, what was first? What was our first?
Okay, so the first, if
Not
I remember right, Book of Boba did
Yes.
CGI only.
That's right.
But it was exciting because it was new.
So it was Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's right.
Was the first show that brought them in physical
That's right.
people in costumes.
Yes, the 501st for the Order 66 in the Jedi Temple.
Yeah.
The person that one of the people that they were using was a stormtrooper costumer, not even a clone trooper costumer. And this person, I was watching this person talk to Adam Savage on his show.
Yeah.
And they were so proud that they have brought seams to clone trooper armor, and it's going to be so I think that was a thing from many years ago that is not a thing anymore. It's just now, it has been for a long time generally accepted that when you build a clone trooper armor, you don't have seams. But this person that, I don't even know if they have a clone costume. Anyway, they pointed out specifically that now, for us costumers, the clone troopers have seams on their armor. So like the forearms, the thighs, pieces that you don't have to clamp like a Boba Fett gauntlet or a Jango Fett or something, clamp onto your forearm. They just slide on. There's no reason. Anyway, there's many goofy little changes. I understand that for stunts and things like that, you want to make the armor a little bit more comfortable, give you a little bit more range of motion.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more comfortable, so that the stunt person inside the costume doesn't get injured when they're flopping onto the ground or things like this. But for people that have been building clone trooper costumes for damn near decades, I mean, there are some really good looking clone trooper costumes out there.
Yeah.
That are members of the 501st that, I mean, look 1,000 times better, and you see them in dynamic poses, doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
I mean, the only thing I really can't do in my Blitz costume, like I said, is sit down, but I can like almost get it kneeling. I can almost kneel, and the only reason I can't sit is because I would crush the cod piece that's underneath me, that goes between my legs. That's literally the only reason that I cannot sit.
But if we wanted, you Blitz has a comma.
Yeah.
If we wanted to make adjustments, you wouldn't even see those. There are ways to modify if you really wanted to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the whole clone trooper highbrow thing is so like frustrating and like brain dead to me. Like I just can't. And that was just one page. Like there's plenty of pages on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else that does things. It's people who are self-proclaimed experts and will tell you like firsthand that they have no experience, no knowledge, no nothing on building a costume, designing anything. They've never put any work. They just like to critique. And Monday morning, it's like the Monday morning quarterback that's sitting in his recliner and has an opinion about everything, did none of the work. Or the guy that's like, oh, I could have directed a better movie or written a better movie about everything, Like, just shut up.
Well, there is no shortage of
loudmouths,
self-proclaimed experts within the 501st as well.
There
are lots of people that would like to advertise themselves as the authority on this and the authority on that. The only difference is that a lot of those people at least have muscle memory of wearing an armor costume or building a couple armor costumes.
Right.
There's that. The qualifier.
Yeah, I'll never sit here and like again with Trooper Addy, I'm not trying to like slander the dude because I really don't care. It's his page; he can post whatever he wants. It's just the lack of ability to have conversation that kills me. It's like if someone came to me and obviously had vastly more knowledge. I think a perfect example is like if I'm talking TVC vintage collection figures, I'm nowhere near as knowledgeable as Scott from the Sarlacc Digest is. Yeah. So if he corrects me on something, I would be happy to correct myself, and change how I look at that thing I'm saying, because he obviously has more knowledge and more experience. And what is Captain Rex's famous line? In my book, experience outranks everything. So I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, it's very, and it's like so unnecessary, the level of hostility. I think that is like, clearly you need to touch grass.
Well,
that is where that comes in. For me.
It makes me think, where does that hostility, what is it born from? It's really
insecurity.
It is when someone feels that the foundation they've built their reputation on, if you will, or their values system, when that's shaken or questioned, or maybe it's just too uncomfortable to have to think that,
could I be wrong?
Could all these years, could I have been mistaken? Is there another way to look at this? Then comes the anger, typically.
Yep, usually, yeah. Or we just resort to playground insults and,
Yeah, it's almost predictable.
Or send a rude text and then edit it 5 minutes later to make it less rude. And
right.
That too. Just stupid little manipulative things like that. Anywho, it is the same when it comes to action figures, though, specifically with clone troopers. I'm of the opinion that the only real improvements that I think Hasbro could make to a clone trooper... Hot Toys are different. I think my only critique on Hot Toys, I wish the ARC Trooper pauldrons were a little more flexible, because I have a hard time sometimes getting them arms out in front because of the way that the pauldron drapes. That's fine. That's just a personal critique. Black Sea, I love the current TVC Clone Trooper. That one right there, that's the most current version, and I think that is the best, because they switched to a swappable head as opposed to the gigantic removable helmet. I would like to see Black Series follow suit and get rid of removable helmets and do swappable heads. See how much more proportionate that helmet looks?
It looks... I completely agree, by the way. The removable helmet is such a goofy...
It's a toy gimmick.
Are these galactic heroes?
Right.
No, we don't need them to have removable helmets. Just make the helmet accurate. How many people... I wonder what the percentage... I'm sure there are some that prefer to display their clone troopers with their helmets off.
The only one of my friends who prefers to do that is the Zoo Boy from Monday Night Figure Ball. He actually goes out of his way to display all his clones with their helmets off, because they're individuals, and that's how he displays them.
They're from something.
Yeah. Shout out Monday Night Figure Ball. Wilbon, I know you're watching, and I know you... Oh, there's my hat right off to the side. MNF. Yeah, what's up, MNF?
Chilling like Bob Dylan and killing like penicillin, watching me some MNF.
Takes me a week to watch MNF. But I think that's my only real critique, is the switching to that. But I see people get so bent out of shape about that the proportions don't look... And I know 2/12 Hunter's going to be seething right now. I agree that the original 2013 Black Series Clone Trooper looks much more like the Revenge of the Sith film than the current
when it's
Clone Trooper.
Standing static in the packaging, the proportions look good.
And Hunter and I have talked about this, so he knows we agree on this. I'm just making fun of him. But as an action figure...
And they have weathering.
As an action figure... The newer ones are superior because you can do more with them.
They actually have action.
They have action.
They're not just figures.
Figure. Yes. I don't have to spend 15 minutes posing the figure to get it to look natural.
Yeah.
And they have more range of motion at a lot of the joints, and
you don't have to look at goofy pins.
Yes.
Not the right color on certain parts.
It's just overall... I do prefer... I'm willing to, at the action figure level, sacrifice some of the visual accuracy for the sake of articulate. Whereas costuming, it's a larger... As the scale gets bigger, it gets easier to retain the visual accuracy while also, giving more movement, because there's just bigger gaps. That said, I think a lot of people also forget that the clone troopers in the movies, the models are constantly clipping into themselves.
Oh yeah,
all the time. I mean,
even in the promotional images.
And my favorite one is the 501st trooper that's running.
Yeah.
If you look, his blaster is conveniently covering the gap between his thigh and the codpiece because his thigh is cutting into the codpiece. And if you pause the Revenge of the Sith movie, or not so much in Attack of the Clones, I think that in Attack of the Clones,
they're just walking.
a lot of the times they're walking or they're standing like real wide, like I have them posed up right here, like all real wide. But yeah, it's just I think a lot of people don't pick up on stuff like that, and a lot of people are very quick to have strong opinions about stuff.
So
you know what I'm saying?
You're making me flash back to the days of, it was really exciting in the early days of Clone Trooper armor costumes.
Yeah.
Because we were taking, it's not like the Stormtrooper costumes where people found, in London they found parts of Stormtrooper costumes in
warehouses,
in the trash bins, in the dumpsters, and they were able to get 1-to-1 trying to replicate, or you have all these different photo references and things like that, or the people that actually made those costumes were still alive and they could make more versions or more copies. But with the Clone Trooper costume, it was so much fun in the community, taking something that never existed in real life and finding ways to make a real person be able to wear these armor parts that not only fit a real person, but also still had, as best you could get, the silhouette of the clones, the CGI clones from prequels. That was a lot of fun, and there were a lot of hits and a lot of misses along the way. Yeah. And like I said earlier, things still continue to improve. They still, to this day, continue to evolve. And to me, that's kind of exciting. Yeah. I like to be a part of that.
It's fun to like you said, talk shop with people too. Like you go to Troop and you meet other people that have maybe a different kind of style of costume.
Where'd you get that? Who made that? Where'd you get that?
Yeah. You know? How did you make this work? Or it's a lot of fun. You can bounce ideas off of each other, and it kind of affects the way that you look at your own costume. It's a collaborative process through and through. So do you have anything more to say on this stuff here? Because I know you talked about you built Captain Rex.
I went from movie. Just the costumes have different costumes that I've had. So I've had a 327th Grunt. Yeah. I did a Captain Rex Phase 1. And
you were explaining this before we went on this whole tangent. You were talking about how back in the day Sideshow came in clutch, but at the time there was a lot of leeway compared to now with designing that character because you didn't have animated armor or anything.
Right. So then I did Phase 1 Commander Bly. And then I decided to give myself a promotion and built a Phase 2 Commander Bly. I also have, for the real ones, you'll know who this character is, Senate Commando Captain J. Fawn.
I need to buy his
from the
action
Clone Wars.
Figure. Yeah, I need to get that.
I have that. And I've been very, very, very... And I've helped build several other costumes, but... I have a very, very slow-going Shore Trooper that I'm working on.
Shore Trooper Squad Leader.
I'm going to do the Squad Leader.
Yeah. So do you think... So I guess this is the last question of this podcast episode. Do you think that the Star Wars that we have right now is conducive to be able to replicate that kind of a situation for people right now? If you're completely novice to collecting or costuming, do you think that Star Wars has the ability to bring people in the same way that it did 20, 30 years ago.
So, to make a compare and contrast, in my time in the early days, let's go with like the prequels.
Yeah.
Even because that's before a lot of the social media, like that.
Yeah.
Back then we were buying books, we were reading magazines. There were some message boards, in the early days. Back in my time for collecting, rebelscum.com was huge. It still exists today in a different iteration. But a lot of collectors would communicate there. Theforce.net was big for news, and they also had a nice forum message board that you could use there. That's where Rebel Force Radio started as the Forcecast.
Yeah.
So there were ways to keep up with what's going on and for fans to interact with one another. It was really cool because before that, there was really difficult. You had Star Wars Fan Club, you had Steve Sansweet out there, the ambassador of Star Wars.
Yeah.
You could write letters to him.
That's crazy.
People used to write letters.
That's crazy.
And send them in the mail. Shout out Cook. But now there's just, not only is there so much Star Wars content, but there are so many avenues, so many outlets, so many ways to get in touch with like-minded people that share your interests. Some people that hate your interests. But yeah, I think that it's more accessible than ever, clearly. Just with the way it is. So, rather than just the local neighborhood kids that you would play with and talk to about things that you liked, now it's literally worldwide.
Yeah.
You can have...
Yeah.
I mean, I know, and being with with a costuming topic, there are people. I have friends. I have people that I consider friends that live all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because communication is so different now, and that would go for, of course, obviously collecting and anything.
True.
So, yeah. So I think I think it's easier than ever for people to get introduced to Star Wars and then to share their interest in Star Wars with people worldwide. Now, all we need is good content.
And that would be key.
That would be key.
And I have high hopes for Mando and Grogu. After speaking with Brendan Wayne at ICCCon 2025 and hearing how excited he is for the project based on what they filmed and what he was on set for, I'm highly optimistic that it'll be a really good watch.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to have high hopes anymore.
Neither can I. No.
But I'm rooting.
Me too.
For it to be a success.
I'm always rooting for Star Wars.
Yes.
I'm always rooting for the franchise to have something good. Yeah.
I want it to work. I want to walk out of that movie with a big smile on my face.
Yeah.
And wondering, when am I going to the next showing?
Yes.
That's what I want.
That's what we need.
I want.
Yeah.
And then I need to compile a list of all the reasons it's trash, and Dave Filoni is garbage, Jon Favreau's a shill.
Well, it's very
Kathleen
easy.
Kathleen Kennedy ruined Star Wars.
You almost got all of it, and then you just have to also say that I just don't like Star Wars anymore.
Well, I don't like Disney Star Wars.
Yeah, I only like the stuff that I grew up with, and I'd rather, rewatch the same 3 movies.
Yeah.
Again and again, and
I mean,
but I'm also gonna make sure that I include myself in every single conversation about the new stuff to make sure to remind you.
Oh, why would you? Yeah,
about why I want to watch the old stuff instead.
I mean, is it an option to just not like certain things and just choose what you do? Like, is that possible?
Is it an option for other people to have conversation without inserting yourself, though? That might be the root of the issue. If you like to hear yourself talk, and you feel like other people need to make sure that they hear your thoughts.
Main character behavior.
Main character syndrome.
If you're the main character, you have to let your opinion be known.
Yeah.
And tell other people that their opinions, that you don't disagree with their opinions.
Yeah.
Their opinions are wrong.
Wrong. I think, therefore I am.
Correct.
Anything else you want to say before we leave us on this episode of the Blitzcast?
Shout out Sarlacc Digest. Shout out SKN. Shadow Nose Network. I think that's a
all right.
wrap.
Yeah. And with that, guys, that wraps up for another episode of the Blitzcast. Talked about something very different than we usually do. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. If you are watching or listening on a platform that allows comment features like YouTube or Spotify, you find this everywhere. The links are all in the description below. You can check out my link tree, which can be found in the bio of all my social media.
Where would somebody get one of these hats?
The Blitz Transmissions Armory over
Blitz
on
Transmissions
Printify.
Armory on Printify.
Yeah.
One of these hats?
Linked in the description below. Comes in 3 different colors.
3 different colors.
Like pretty patties. With that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Blitzcast. We'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Mr. Krabs, I have an idea!
Breaking off. All units, fire at will. 4-2, pick a target. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody, cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. Gotta hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcements?